Who needs sleep when there's so much to do, right? How has society's sacrifice for sleep impacted our productivity and our mental and physical health in the long run and even in the short term? These are questions I want to answer in this video. Specifically, we're going to talk about the stats on trading sleep for work, why society prioritizes busyness, the trade-offs of overwork for tiredness, how lack of sleep impacts, mostly negatively, our work and brain function, the acute and long-term effects of sleep deprivation, and some basic tips for better sleep. Now, in our society, somehow busyness has become this badge of honor. Ask somebody how they're doing when they walk by. A lot of people are going to say they're busy. So somehow getting more hours of work into the day has taken precedence over our sleep time at night. And what we're discovering is that attaining this medal of distinction may not have been the golden ticket we were searching for. According to the Sleep Foundation, most people spend about 9.5 hours a day at work, and this was in 2008. So the studies might have changed a little bit. But what this means is that with the advent of technology and people working more, they've actually taken their work at home, and the average American is spending at least 4 hours extra a week of working from home as well. This has led to about 1 to 1.5 hours less of sleep a night. And the latest statistics show that at least a third of Americans are getting the less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep at night, specifically 6 or fewer hours. So, what happened? How did busyness become so glorified in our modern culture? Now, there was a 2017 article in the Journal of Consumer that sought to explore these perceptual and cultural shifts on why working more took precedent over other aspects of our life. And it was summarized in this article by Very Well Mind. And what basically the authors indicated was that research indicated that an individual's perceived level of busyness was heavily connected to their self-worth, as well as how others viewed their status. People who were busy felt that they were needed, that they were in demand and important, and this elevated their feelings of self-worth. Culturally, there's been a shift in status perception in that material objects and goods are no longer an indicator of one's social standings, and individuals who are busy at work or overworked have a lack of leisure time, and that's perceived as a higher status. That's the current theory. Now, the problem is that when we are in constant engagement with work, the digital world, with the news and information, our brains just become overstimulated. And this rush of running on adrenaline makes us feel like we don't need to take a time out. As a result, our minds stay revved up. This prevents us from being able to rest later on, and then we stay occupied, and it's this vicious cycle. It's actually been termed the term busy brain syndrome to explain this cycle of an overtaxed, bombarded mind that can't turn off, and then that creating the vicious cycle again of doing more and more and more, making the mind more stimulated. What's happened is that this excessive busyness has taken its toll, and it's led to burnout. It negatively impacted our emotional, physical, and relationship health. It could be why about 1 in 5 Americans report that they need to take sleeping medications. This was in 2020. And hypnotics are okay for the short term, but they have some intense side effects, and long term, not a good thing to stay on. So, this temporary status gain of being busy taking priority over our long term well being is an alarming trend. What I want to do is kind of go through these trade-offs to hopefully convince you that it might be a better idea to get more shut-eye than to get some extra work done when you come home at night. You actually will probably be more productive later on if you do that. And that's exactly what's being suggested. Now, it's specifically what they have linked is that sleep deprivation not only leads you to feeling more tired, but you're also less creative. It's more difficult to stay focused, and you actually lose productivity, and it becomes an exhausting cycle because you feel like you're behind. So then you have to work more, then you get less sleep, and the cycle continues. Now, let's look exactly how sleep impacts brain function when this happens. So, evidence has revealed that when trying to work when underslept undercuts the time gained for poor performance on the job, which I just discussed. Without the proper amount of sleep, neurons in the brain become overworked, and even an acute lack of sleep impairs thinking, causes memory and concentration problems. It slows physical reaction time. It increases emotional reactivity and disrupts the brain's metabolic processes. Let's break that down a little bit. Now, short-term sleep deprivation can disrupt the normal functioning of your hippocampus, and that's the area that's involved in memory and learning. Now, this brain region that helps with the retention of short and long-term information also helps us to navigate directions and move through space. You've probably noticed that you might be clumsier or trip more or have more accidents when you're tired. This is one reason. Cutting sleep also disrupts neuronal pruning and removing metabolic waste from neurons. And the brain needs to do this to help clean up and to help process information. And it's needed for brain performance and memory formation. Now, when the brain's waste removal system, which is called the glymphatic system, is not working properly, this can lead to a decreased clearance of amyloid plaques, which is linked to neurodegenerative diseases. So this lymphatic system and its ability to remove this metabolic waste takes place at night when we're sleeping. So it's critical for brain homeostasis. So we need to make sure that we're allowing our brain this time to heal and to rejuvenate and to get out all of the stuff that's built up, all the waste from the day. Now, sleep is also associated with processing emotions and assisting with mood regulation. So, a lack of sleep actually causes negative psychological effects, and it influences how we process emotional cues. There was a study in Tel Aviv University which actually linked a lack of sleep to this overactivation of the amygdala, which is the emotional region of the brain. And this was from the lack of, again, from the lack of sleep. And even just one night of sleeplessness changes your ability to regulate emotions and allocate brain resources for what they say as objective cognitive processing. So what this means is that the mere recognition of what is emotional and neutral is disrupted. So that's why we can tend to be overreactive or just maybe more emotionally drained when we're underslept, because our brain is trying to survive and everything appears more threatening than it actually probably is. So those were the short-term effects of sleep deprivation. We looked at the issues with memory processing, productivity, the fact that regular brain metabolic cleanup can't happen, and this can also impact our risk for neurodegenerative diseases later on, as well as our memory and thinking and cognitive processing during the day, and also this impact on our emotional reactivity. And as far as the latter point, just think about if someone is more reactive and moody, how this impacts our relationship health and our interactions at work with our coworkers. So all of this stuff is related to lack of short-term sleep, and then it can lead into long-term implications. Now, some of the risks that are associated with chronic sleep deprivation include more sickness and immune dysregulation, metabolic dysregulation and diabetes, brain fog, problems with thinking and memory, cognitive decline and processing issues, mental health disorders, including long-term anxiety and depression, economic decline, right, because this lack of productivity, cravings and weight changes, more accidents, and then cardiovascular disease, specifically stroke, high blood pressure, and coronary artery disease. So all of this can be pretty overwhelming, especially if you thought you were doing a good thing by decreasing your amount of sleep. And actually, studies have shown that most people aren't good at perceiving exactly how tired they are and how much that they are actually less productive as well as less amped at moving through the day when they're overtired, because they kind of get used to that. So how do we get better sleep? Now, I'm going to do another video on sleep because this topic is so important and talk about some of the positive things about sleep. And in that, I'm going to go through more tips to get better slumber, specifically cited from a top sleep neuroscientist, Matthew Walker, because he's kind of the go-to guy as far as sleep and bringing it out to wellness and to the health community and to consumers that we needn't and shouldn't be ignoring sleep, that it's a extensive foundation for health. So how can we get better sleep? Now, these are just some simple things that you can try to do. One of them is to stick to a sleep schedule. So this will help keep your sleep-wake cycle more stable, and it will signal to your brain when it's time to sleep, when it's time to wake up. Kind of gives your brain a little bit of a routine. Just like kids, our brain likes routines. Now, avoid large meals and frequent fluids before bed if you want to prevent issues with falling asleep from digestive distress and staying asleep from, getting up to go to the bathroom several times a night because you drank too much. You can create a restful environment to allow your brain and body to calm down prior to bedtime. Especially turn down the lights, because if you have too much lights on, that can suppress your melatonin, which helps you feel sleepy and fall asleep faster. You want to limit naps if naps keep you from feeling sleepy at bedtime, with a caveat that some people do okay on naps. Just know your body and kind of how you do. If naps are going to prevent you from falling asleep, you might want to avoid those so that you can get better sleep at night. Movement is really great for the brain, especially when you don't do it too close to bedtime. Most of the experts are saying at least 3 hours before bedtime, so it gives your body a time to settle down and relax. And then one of the final tips, a lot of people stay up, maybe they're worrying about things to do. They might have other worries on their mind, and then this causes them to ruminate, and it keeps them awake. So one of the tips that many experts offer is to write this stuff down so you get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper. If there's more for you to do tomorrow, write it down. Then you can just forget about it, go to sleep. If that's not enough, you might want to look into things like journaling your feelings, using emotional freedom technique or tapping, which has been shown to help to reduce cortisol and reduce stress. Implementing aromatherapy. Lavender is great for sleep, one of my favorites, and they calm the brain and the body. So we've talked a lot about sleep. We've talked about why we shouldn't really be trading sleep for work, because it actually has a detrimental effect in the long term on our productivity and especially on our mental and physical health. And it increases our risk for chronic diseases. Our bodies need sleep as a foundation for health. And again, when we don't get enough of it, our work suffers, our brain health suffers, our cognition suffers, our emotional balance suffers, our relationships and overall wellness suffer. So it's important to carve out more time and release ourselves from these busy brain syndrome cycle. Even just getting more sleep, you'll probably notice that your self-worth will go up because you feel better. So you'll start taking better care of yourself. And if you feel that you have to keep doing things in order to have self-worth, it might be something to talk to about with a professional. And also, finally, don't stress out with this information and just get all stressed out now that you're not getting enough sleep. Go gently. You know your body. Just carve out more time to rest. And it might have to start in slow increments, but eventually get there. The average amount most people need is 7 hours of sleep. And again, it's an individual thing. You know how your body functions best. But if you're falling asleep, you're tired, your productivity is going down, you can't settle down your brain, and your health is suffering, it's time to look at your sleep. And I remember, again, we want to take this as something that's going to nourish us rather than something that's going to scare us, scare us so much that we won't fall asleep. So I hope this was helpful for you and that you will now consider carving out some more time for rest and rejuvenation so that you can get what your body needs. to optimize your health and your wellness, and especially your emotions and your relationship and well-being. If you like this information, please make sure to comment and show some love in the video description. I will also have all the resources and references, as well as the studies where I got the information in the video description. It'll link to the article where you can get that info. And please be sure to check out the resources that I have available on my website, as well as additional resources for colleagues and professionals on some courses I teach about essential oils and mind-body education and using them clinically for your clients. And I also have a lot of free resources for consumers as well as classes. So again, check that out in the video description. Thank you for taking the time to learn about sleep and how it's foundational for your overall health. And I will see you again real soon. Take care.